Welcome to Wisconsin in Focus. I'm JD Davidson. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a focal point at schools, colleges, and government organizations for some time now. In Wisconsin, just last year, it triggered a fight over money for the University of Wisconsin system between university leaders and the governor and Republican lawmakers. Now, Republicans in Wisconsin who control the state legislature want to know more. Joining us today is Ben Yount, Wisconsin contributor for the Center Square. Ben, where's this fight over DEI going in Wisconsin now?
Well, we don't know where it's going, and that's one of the things that is worrisome for supporters of DEI. You talked about last year's spat over money for the UW. That was $32 million for DEI administrators on campus. And you got to remember that the University of Wisconsin's overall budget is measured in the billions of dollars. So 32 million is, a relative drop in the bucket, but it put a price tag on something that is very, very in the focus right now. And there were a lot of worries at the university, and professors, administrators, the university president himself defending the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, not just as necessary and almost mandatory on campus, but painting it as one of the university's strengths and one of Wisconsin's strengths overall. And that gave you a snapshot of just how invested the university is in DEI. This audit is for all of state government, the governor's agencies. And this would look not just at a handful of administrators. This would look at all DEI initiatives. That means scholarships, fellowships, internships, hiring preferences. What is the internal policy at the State Department of Administration? What is the policy at the Department of Human Services? What is the DEI philosophy at the State's Department of Agriculture? And so, as anybody who's watched any amount of Law and Order knows, once you start asking open-ended questions, once you start looking at where this goes and where that goes, you don't know where you're going to end up. So where does this audit go from here? Well, auditors are going to start asking questions. They expect to work on this through at least next year. But there was a scrum over $32 million for a handful of DEI jobs on UW campuses. Now we're talking about all of diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout all of state government. And nobody has any idea what the price tag is there, the head count is there, or just how deep this runs.
So if you have a sense or know, why now? Why not a year ago? Why not a year from now? Why now?
The simple solution is this is an election year. There is obviously politics to this, but Wisconsin writes its budget in 2-year chunks. We do a biennium, if you're looking for the civics word. And that means in budget years, the spring is spent budgeting, figuring out what needs to be paid for, figuring out if there can be an agreement. This off year allows lawmakers to look at bigger picture issues, pick up unfinished business, go home and get reelected. And this is a legitimate concern because, again, nobody knows just what is being spent. And the Legislative Audit Bureau, we've written several stories on audits that they have done. They've exposed waste, fraud, and abuse at almost every level. And so the idea of saying, let's take a look at what DEI is, there's a lot of opportunity for waste or fraud or abuse, or given the recent Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, there could be some actual no longer legal, let's put it that way, no longer legal things going on inside state government, and Republicans want to know.
Who's leading the charge?
This would be Bob Wittke out of Racine County and Eric Wimberger, who is an outspoken opponent of DEI from up in Green Bay. In fact, at the hearing this week, he laid bare exactly what it is that he thinks of DEI and exactly why he doesn't like DEI. Here's just some of, this was a 7 or 8 minute, I don't want to say speech, but this is a minute, and you get the sense of just where the senator is on this issue.
DEI forces people to see individuals as part of groups sharing immutable characteristics and to stereotype character traits associated with those groups through cultural awareness and cultural responsiveness. Then, by discriminating against individuals based on those immutable characteristics, leaders can keep score among those various groups for equity. DEI is a neo-Marxian philosophy meant to pit one socially constructed class against another. When the identities in DEI relate to race or ethnicity, it is nothing short of rebranded ethnic nationalism. DEI efforts seek to retrench concepts from before the Civil Rights Acts, proposing that a person of a particular immutable characteristic ought to get what they deserve, since discrimination against the individual is the way to achieving a preconceived group equity target.
If you can't tell, the senator is an attorney in his downtime, immutable characteristics as opposed to skin color. Now, sure. Wimberger said that he still believes in the goals of the Civil Rights Act to get us to a colorblind society. And he said that that's one of the reasons why he is driving so hard against diversity, equity, and inclusion. He has no problem with making sure that we all get along, that everyone has opportunities, but he just doesn't like the way that DEI has been applied here in Wisconsin.
What group or agency or who is first up?
We don't know. The Department of Administration was at the hearing this week, and they had the company line that diversity is Wisconsin's strength and the Wisconsin idea to take everyone forward. Auditors, the head auditor laid it out and said this would be a massive undertaking because, again, you're looking at a lot of state government. And so we don't know just who's going to be first yet. We also don't know what kind of cooperation we're going to get. We've had audits in the past. I remember the Department of Workforce Development audit after COVID with, hey, what happened to the unemployment line? Why were people waiting so long? And there wasn't a lot of cooperation. So as we go forward, the questions here become very, very important, but so do the answers. And that's the part that we just don't know about yet.
Well, it will be interesting for us, and certainly we will follow this in the next months and most likely year to come. Ben, thanks for joining us today. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com.
Attention parents, teachers, and taxpayers. Do you care about the decisions being made in K-12 public education? Do you want to know how those decisions impact your students and school district? Chalkboard News has you covered. We're delivering fact-based reporting on the policies that shape school safety, curriculum, and recovery from learning loss. At Chalkboard News, we're cutting through the politics and focusing on the facts behind the issues impacting students, teachers, and families. Get this news delivered to your inbox for free by signing up at chalkboardnews.com.